this thing. I mentioned systems. There are systems in place that make you feel like legacy is far fetched. In fact, I'll go a step further. There are systems in place that make you feel that legacy is only for rich people. And there's a lot of people who really do believe that legacy is only for rich people. And I'm the first person to tell you that it's a myth. Now, we'll talk about why and how it's a myth later. But I want to get to the other side to where, being that we look at legacy creation, some of the fear that exists in legacy creation is like entitlement. And so the issue becomes is that within the space of entitlement, another word for entitlement is privilege, if it's just in case anybody did not know. And I think a lot of times privileged poisons progress, or even if there is no process, then privilege becomes the outcome. And when you become privileged, it poisons progression. What is it? The Vanderbilts, right? The Vanderbilts, they was doing something similar to this, and then at a certain point, it ran out because they didn't have a progress, or didn't have a process. Um, I think it's the Rockefellers who also did something like this, but they did not run out. In fact, not only because John D. Rockefeller created so much value that when he created this system, it existed, and from my understanding, might be still existing like 7 generations later. Um, so I think that's important. Going back to the Vanderbilts, I think there's a news reporter that's on TV right now. Not this very minute, but he works for CNN. And Anderson, I can't remember his name. Um, white hair guy on CNN. Somebody's gonna put in the chat. I know it, but supposedly he is a Vanderbilt. But anyway, we have to get to the point to where we break down the systems, not attacking the system, but the effects in which the system has created in our heads. When we can break down the effects of the system on how on what it created in our head, I think now we realize that, oh, well, this does not have to be limited to rich people. It can be for everybody. And then once we do that, now what we're doing is we're liberating the family name from the system that kept it in bondage for years. But the issue is that as long as I'm dependent upon the system, I'm still in bondage. And so why is that? Because I'm gonna go to here, Dr. Edgar Villanueva. He said, charity soothes the giver's guilt, but justice dismantles the giver's power. Now I want, especially those people who are out there in the YouTube sphere, Facebook sphere, Instagram sphere, and any other sphere out there. I want you to kind of let that sink in for a second. Charity soothes the giver's guilt, but justice dismantles the giver's power. Some people are only providing aid, and when I say people, you have to read between the lines of what I'm saying. Some people provide aid out of the long-term guilt of what has been done years ago. If you know what I'm talking about, you know what I'm talking about. So that aid is there for the sake of that. But justice is available in order for you to dismantle the power that it has over you. So my concern is that within the family dynamics, we don't exercise the justice that is available to us. And then we end up passing down the need for charity from generation to generation to generation to generation. Your thoughts on that?
Oh, this new information, the way I'm looking at it like this, so I like that. Um, I'm looking at the charity soothe the giver's gift, and as you were speaking, I was like, "Oh, that's what it means." So I definitely understand that. Um, I've always heard people say that some people try to give their way into heaven. You know, they try to help people. You know what I mean? So you probably know what I'm talking about too. So um, it's funny how being put into these words like that um, is I don't know, it's making something do in my brain. I don't know. But
Yeah.
yeah, I can definitely rock with that. I think a lot of people out there, I've seen people give to charity, even like when I go and drop stuff off at the Goodwill, one of the things they always ask me is like, "Do you want a receipt?" I'm just like, "No, I'm just dropping this stuff off to get rid of it out the house." You know what I mean? I ain't really looking for nothing. And then like the charity piece, I was kind of coming from more there, but I think you was coming from the piece that as a person ourselves receiving the charity. You know what I mean? And
Mhm.
so that was I like that. I think there are a lot of people that have been generation receiving charity. You know what I mean? Because someone thinks that that's what they should do. I
Yeah.
know someone right now in the school system who thinks that great person. She thinks that the school system does too much for parents, good, bad, or indifferent. Things like provide food, not food, but like extra food for kids and mental health services and these other different things. I get it, but she was like, how can teachers teach when they have all of these extra things that they have to do that in a sense should be what parents should be doing? So I don't know how that plays a part in all of this. It just kind of
Mhm.
came up, but
Sure.
I always just was, when I heard that, we talked about perspectives earlier, and this is one of those perspectives where I'm just like, I see it, I understand it. I would definitely want to, know more about it and why this person thinks those things, good, bad, or indifferent. But it's interested in hearing, that new perspective about something. But I definitely see, in certain communities, where this is a thing where people, and then not only the charity part, but people feel entitled and saying, "Hey, you know what? I deserve this. I deserve this charity because of X, Y, and Z, and because of the past and different things like that. And those people should be giving me money." So I think that's part of that too, is as I'm kind of thinking about it, especially this first portion of this quote right here.
Yeah. I I'm puzzled at the
Mhm,
school perspective. Not the fact that you brought it up, but the fact that this young lady sees it that way.
mhm,
Um, because it just helps me to understand that she does not understand what school was originally created for.
mhm,
And that's a whole nother conversation, and I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole right now.
mhm,
Um, but by that same token, um, that's evidence. Like, think about it. And I'm not trying to make fun of it.
yeah,
But who is first responsible for teaching the children? The parents.
mhm,
Well, if the parents have the responsibility for teaching their children, then in all actuality, when they go to school, then the teacher's job should be pretty easy because at the end of the day, the children have a great foundation for teaching.
mhm.
However, comma, I think
However
we all know,
come.
I think we all know everybody has a different definition of parenting. And I'm not
Uh-huh.
here to school parents on how to parent. That's not my job right now. Right. Um, but what I will say is that it's not by happenstance that the best numbers statistically come from those who are homeschooled, right? And I'm talking about statistically, not the eaches, the ones and twos. I'm talking statistically. Those who are homeschooled generally perform better, not just in standardized testing, right? Not just in testing, but also in life. Because at the end of the day, they're getting not only the teaching that the homeschooling provides, but there is no lapse, right? There is no lapse in discipline between parent and teaching.
Mhm.
There is no outside influence between little Johnny and Tamika sitting beside me talking to me while the teacher trying to teach. So I think
Yep.
that's the thing as well. And so is this me suggesting that homeschooling becomes a thing? Absolutely. I recommend homeschooling without a doubt. And this is
I agree.
nothing against the school system. It's a system for a reason. It is what it is. I'm not fighting the system. And I tell people all the time, stop fighting the system. The
Yep.
system does exactly what it's supposed to do.
Yeah.
If you don't like the system, move outside of the system and
Yeah.
create your own system,
Create
which
your
is
own
what this whole
system.
conversation is about, right?
Mhm.
Again, if we can't create homeschooling within our own system, we're
Mhm.
missing the value of what a legacy is all about. That's why in the beginning we started off, and one of the first things that was said is that if we're looking at legacy and the first thing that comes to mind is money, we're missing the value of legacy. But the reason why is because, well, a lot of families aren't teaching legacy.
Mhm.
So if they're not teaching legacy, then you're passing on to me what's important, and that becomes important moving forward. I may grasp some other things that's important, but at the end of the day, you ain't never talked to me about legacy. I don't know nobody who has a legacy plan, like, and they still never talk about it. So, yeah, that's not important. But
Imagine having oh, go ahead.
no, no, go ahead.
Imagine having that. Imagine having that school. Imagine having that legacy building within the community to whereas, you know what, this is what we do over here. Like all our kids either go to trade school or they go to college or they go to entrepreneur. You got 3 routes once you graduate high school.
Right,
Which one you want to go down. And then everybody in the community focus is on one of these 3 pathways. Because for the most part, that's what we do. A lot of us we go to a job or 9 to 5 or something. We go to the military. You know, we start our own job or we go to college and then go and get a job or some place of employment after that. You know what I'm saying?
right,
So it's like we as a community, like I said, we no need in complaining about a system that we can control. Build our own system. We had our own systems at one time. You know what I mean? We can create those own things again. It doesn't take a whole lot, honestly. It really doesn't take a whole lot. You can start small and expound out. I've seen it in the schools with 3 to 6 families. You know what I mean? Most of the dudes are working. Some of the wives may be staying at home, whatever like this, but they're all pitching in, helping each other, with all of the homeschooling stuff. Coach may teach math on Mondays, and I may come in and teach English and science on Tuesdays and Wednesdays. And you got everybody's who, and then they're all invested in it. You know what I mean? Because
mhm,
all of their kids are involved. So they're all going to workshops and learning more about what's the latest and what's the best type of curriculum. And they're trying to give the kids everything. There ain't a whole bunch of wasted time in the lines in school. With teacher getting on this kid for this, and your child is not getting all of that instructional time because there's 3 bad kids in the classroom, and the teacher spends 60% of her time on discipline and 40% time is on teaching.
right,
So you avoid a lot of that extra stuff, the distractions, all of that other stuff. People impacting, putting information into your kids, supporting your kids when they have a certain thought that may or may not be what you want. And then they go to school and they say, hey, I got having this thought and I think I'm this. And then the teacher's like, oh yeah, you are. And your parents don't agree with you. No, well, your parents are wrong. And I'm
hmm,
just like, so there are a lot of things that are negatively impacted in school. I am 100% pro homeschooling, and
yeah,
I work in education. I am 100% pro public school system. I can be pro both. I
true,
think for some people public school is good. I think for others private school is good. I think for others homeschooling is good.
yeah,
If you got a good home, let's do it. That's where I want to be.
yeah, yeah.
But
I'm with you.
I'm definitely singing another note than what I was growing up. When I was growing up, as early on as a father, hey, get to school and learn. Get your learning on, boy. You know what I mean? It ain't my job to teach you. That's why you go to school. You go to school to learn. It's your teacher's job to learn.
Right.
For many years, I thought that it was the school's job to teach my kids.
Yeah.
As an adult, later in life, when I realized, bro, you had it all wrong. It was your responsibility,
Yeah.
my responsibility to teach them kids.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. And I will inject for those people who are hearing what we're saying right now. Keep in mind, we're still talking intention versus impact. We have not
Mhm.
changed the topic. We're
Yep.
just changing the angle. That's all. And trust me, we're gonna angle it back in a different direction here in a second. But for those of you who heard the expression of homeschooling and things of that nature, I do want to say this because everything has pros and cons.
Mhm.
And if we don't recognize that as a thing, then we're missing the mark. You heard some of us address some of the cons of public school, but what are some of the pros of public school? Your children learn how to interact socially. They should learn resiliency. Now, trust me, there's some pros and cons with that as well. But
Mhm.
because if I have not done the work in the beginning, when they go to school, they may hit a brick wall, and we call that depression, simply because they do not necessarily understand the word no. They do not understand rejection and things of that nature. So, and again, I don't want to talk specifically about a particular parenting style. However, it is my responsibility as a parent to create resiliency in the child. That's why impact is way more important than intent. I can have the best intentions on the planet when it comes down to what I'm doing at home, but the impact overall could be detrimental. So that's why I say that. So again, if I'm going to homeschool, that's great. Get them out there so that they can interact with other students that are not so much other students, but other kids at a later point in time. Take them to the park. I don't care if you take them to daycare like one day a week because I don't, depending upon certain homeschool, you don't do 5 days a week, but
Mhm.
whatever. But I don't care if you take them to a daycare or whatever that looks like, or just take them someplace so they can be socially interacting. This is a great time to get them in things like karate. You know what I'm saying? Get them out there and doing gymnastics, playing Pee Wee League football.
Yep.
That right there is a great way of supplementing like that social interaction that they will get in public school,
Yep. 100%.
in conjunction with everything that we're talking about, though. Because again, it's all about the people that we're serving. That's why the impact is more important. A lot of times we do things on this side because it's all about me, right? I don't want to tell my child no. I want to give my child the best of everything because when I was young, I got told no a lot. But you did not turn out to be a bad person. And if you did not turn out to be a bad person, why are you trying to change it for your child, thinking that a change of principle will not yield a different outcome? So I guess my question is, when does your help unintentionally erase the agency of those you serve? Now, when we say agency, we're talking about like the organization, and what its intended purpose for those it's intended to serve. I'll say it that way, right? So the organization, like we talked about previously, the work that our parents did in us, work that our mothers did in us, and not knowing later on that it would turn into this great outcome of serving others. Well, on this side, now we're looking at kids when we're trying to help them because in our mind, I want my child to have everything that I didn't have. Well, when does that get to the point of unintentionally erasing the agency of that child that I'm serving? And I'm using children as an example. You don't have to limit it to just that. But when do we get there?
Um, I like that, and that helped me understand it a lot better. I think when sometimes I think it can be immediate.
Mm,
Um, I think it can start small. I think it can start big depending on how you're helping. Um, me and Shell was watching a video this morning, and it was snowing outside, and it was a little kid coming down the slide, and he was boom boom, and then he fell right in the snow. Dad was recording, and dad was laughing,
mm,
and the little girl right there, and she said something, and Me and my wife, we started talking, having conversation, and she said, so my wife doesn't have kids, and I have three, and we decided we're not going to have any together. And so sometimes our perspectives are different. Sometimes, just especially when it comes to kid and parenting and stuff like this, neither one is wrong or right. They're just different because I once have raised kids and she haven't. But in that video, she was like, one of the first things she would have did was she would be like, and I was like, "See, as soon as you do that, that's what your son is going to do. He's going to mimic that, and then he's going to start crying too." You heard the dad
Mhm.
laughing because the dad know he need that child to be resilient. That child is going to grow up to be a man. He's going to be somebody's husband. Going to be somebody's father. He's going to be out the world, and ain't nobody going to care about him. So he knows that when that son go boom, 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 and he hit the ground and he get up, he gonna be okay. You know what I mean? So he's laughing or whatever like that. So I think those are cases where sometimes, we can over nurture or over help. And
Mm.
sometimes it's immediate when you see that child, at 2 years old, that every time they fall down, they start crying. You know what I mean? Because you help them get back up every single time they fall. That joker be fine. He got on a soggy pamper. That joker got plenty of padding for when he fall. He will be okay. You know what I'm saying? So I think that sometimes it can be immediate, and I think showing a level of consistently helping unintentionally can create bigger problems.
Mm.
Helping them once, get up, blah, 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 versus helping them every single day they get up. Then they get to school, like we were just talking about, and they haven't developed any sort of resiliency or anything like that. So I think, in a sense, when does help unintentionally erase the agency? I think sometimes it's immediate with certain things, and I think other times it's constantly developing as you continue to help unintentionally.
I like that. That was I missed the hold on, wait. Let me give flowers real quick. Hold on. Y'all give me a second. Y'all bear with me. Yeah, I like that. I like that. That's a really good response. Not only was it really good, it's totally opposite of what I was going to say.
Mm,
That's I think I don't want to say that's the reason why I like it, but I do like it because it gives me a different way of looking at it. Because
mhm.
see, my response is, when does your help unintentionally erase the agency of those you serve when they are now presented with the opportunity to serve?
Ooh,
One
go
of the
deeper.
struggles, say again?
I said, "Ooh, go deeper."
So, one of the struggles that we have, I think, is clear and obvious and evident in our society is we struggle with relationship. Now,
Mhm,
the question that I ask, and I'm going back to the parenting thing because, again, we're talking legacy. The issue that I have with this notion of relationship is the thing that we did not do in the home. And you can, and I'm 100% open to anybody telling me different, or when we taught it in our home, okay, great. If you are the anomaly, good on you. Because
mhm.
hopefully, ideally, that means that you have a great relationship now. But one thing we did not teach in the home is relationship. We may have even taught finances, which I don't think we did for the most part, collectively, right? And this is not a hit on anybody. This is part of legacy. I'm gonna keep stressing that. We didn't teach finances. We didn't teach relationship. But wait, where does help come from? Help comes from interactions with other relationship and the ability to use resources to help them in their area of needs, finances. So systemically, we probably read a lot of books, but we ain't got nothing out of it. We probably studied the Bible, but we didn't extract the right things out of it, because anytime Jesus went to the people to serve. Whatever the people had a need of, he gave them that first. before he started giving them the word. Now he had followers too. Don't get me wrong. And so for the followers, he taught them. Then he, come on, man. I don't want to get me started. So and I think that's the thing.
Taking
That's
notes.
that's what we struggle at. We don't teach the things that make it possible to serve. Therefore, when the agency now is in position to serve, they fail to serve and they seek to be served.
And I know you ain't done with your thought, but
Because they don't recognize why they're here. Why are you an agency? You're an agency because you're supposed to provide a service. And because you're supposed to provide a service, you have to be equipped to provide the service that you were destined to provide. Your service may not necessarily look like my service, and that's okay. But that does not mean that I can't, like, and I'm talking parenting now. My child's service don't have to look like my service because I don't know what my child is called to do. But I still have a responsibility to give that child the infrastructure so that they can actually serve. When I fail at giving them the infrastructure needed to serve, now when they go out and do their interactions with people and they start meeting and greeting and shaking hands and the opportunity to serve shows up. Oh man, y'all always got your hand out for something. Hmm. I mean, they might be asking for a fish, but if I teach them to fish, would I not still be serving them? Because teaching them to fish is impact. Them wanting to fish might be my intent from the perspective of serving. Why? Because if I give you a fish, you get to glorify me. But if I teach you to fish, we can go and teach others to fish together. See, this is I mean, I hate to I hate to bring it down, but this goes deeper than Nino Brown. You know what I'm saying? It's it
mm,
is a system that we do not see. And because we don't see it, we operate within the confines of the systems claiming that we're free. You're not. You have to create your own freedom system.
I got two words out of there again, and I don't know why I'm coming back to this word serve again. I wrote down serve, and I wrote an arrow towards the word impact. Then I wrote another arrow, but then I don't have anything after the word impact. How do I know if I don't know what I'm trying to say, but I'm gonna try to say it. I'm gonna try to get it out. I think it's a question in here. So the gears are rolling right now with this serving this impact thing. If I am serving and there is no impact, is something wrong with the information I'm getting? Is there something wrong with my serving? And the reason why I'm asking that because I see people out there who claim they say I'm serving, I'm doing this, but there ain't no impact behind it. And I understand, like you said before, sometimes the impact is not going to always be seen immediately. Sometimes the seed time and harvest thing, and it may not come out till later.
Mhm. Keep going. You're
Mhm.
doing good. You're doing good.
But sometimes people serve, but they ain't seeing the impact. So how do they know if their service is right? Does it need to come from a specific source in order for it to be impactful? Or you
Mm,
think some people out there just throwing darts, say, yeah, I'm out here serving, I'm serving. All of
mhm.
that. I don't know where I'm supposed to go with that. I don't know where
No,
my question is.
I think you went the right place though, because you said a number of different things, and I want to go back to something I said previously.
Mhm.
When you first mentioned seed time and harvest,
Mhm.
some plant, some water, God gets the increase.
Mhm.
How do I know if my service is impactful? It's not my responsibility to know. It's my responsibility to serve. If I am seeking to know, that means that I am serving through the lens of my intent. Service, which comes from the right place, always come from a higher source. That's why you don't feel equipped to serve in the space that you're called to serve. You have to be equipped. So now, when we change the narrative and the perspective, do I really need to see whether or not it's impactful? No, because we're talking, look, we're talking legacy, right? Who is it
Mhm.
intended to serve? Generations. So, no, I won't see it. It's not intended for me to see it. It's intended for me to build it if it's not already built. Because every legacy that I'm sorry, this is not gonna sound good, right? And I think everybody who hears this may fall in that category. 99.97% of the people that hear what I'm getting ready to say falls in this category. For every generation it skips to create the legacy, we're all guilty. It is my responsibility to leave an inheritance for my children's children. When I do not do that, or I do it through the lens of my intent, I'm guilty. I have to do it through the lens of impact, which means that at a minimum, it has to reach out. And I'm going to say, the Bible says children's children. It has to at least extend 3 generations at a minimum. That's the start of it. My 401k, I don't care what you say, and I didn't mean for it to rhyme. Time. It ain't gonna reach, it ain't gonna reach 3 generations deep. I'm sorry.
Mhm.
So the notion of that, they okay. The notion of that was a lie from the jump street. And I don't mean it was a lie from the perspective that you can't build a nest egg. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that that nest egg would not afford your family to have a legacy for the next 3 generations. I know people who have like $1 million in a retirement account. But in order for that $1 million to do what it's supposed to do, you can't spend that $1 million. You got to use that $1 million to go out and get some friends.
Mhm.
That's kind of like my point. But again, how many people do you know that have $1 million in a retirement account? In the retirement account, I'm not talking about any other accounts, just the retirement account alone. So there are some principles that need to be taught. There's some things that we need to learn. And I think the first thing begins with no one is innocent as long as you're still in the system. That means it's okay. When we're all guilty, right? Listen, when we're all in jail together, we can't judge each
Mhm.
other. I'm,
Yeah.
I'm just I'm just keeping it real.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we can't judge each other. I don't care what you did. We in here together. So this is where we at. But we can create a plan to get out. And here's the thing: getting out does not necessarily mean me, myself. It can mean me, myself, if I have the skill set and the means to do so. It's a whole nother conversation, by the way. But getting out means my family name eventually gets out because I start the process for the legacy, and then I put my children in charge to run it.
Mm. Yeah. All of that. Um, the serving and the impact thing, man. You brought that 100% full back, fully circle, full back circle, whatever you want to say. And I was, as you were talking, I was thinking about, a lot of people, when we talk, especially in school, people talk about, being inspiring, being impactful, leaving your legacy, what's going to be said and done once you leave this education system, once you leave, this earth, and when it comes down to the serving piece, I think there are times in my life where I was focused on it's like, well, ain't nobody pat you on your butt and said good game. So maybe what you saying ain't impactful. One of the biggest nuggets I got was when you said the analogy, when you talked about the legacy and our grandkids or great grandkids, like we're gonna be gone. We ain't gonna see all of that. We ain't gonna know the impact of all of that stuff later on down the road. The same thing now. So if I ain't gonna know it then, why do I need to know when I go out there and volunteer over here? Why do I need to know the impact of it? You know what I mean? Be obedient, do what you're supposed to do, go out there and serve, and don't worry about the other two people's position and what they have to do. You said one person plants, another person what was the other part? And then
Some
God elevates.
some water, some plant, some water. God gets the increase.
So right there, if my job is to plant, my job is just to plant. My job is to go out there when it's time to plant the seeds, dig up the dirt, whatever it is, and put my seed into the ground and then
Mhm.
move on into the next whatever it is that I need to sow. I think that's where a lot of people, I think a lot of people sometimes forget their role in this, and I think that sometimes our job may be right here, right now, may be to plant, but I guarantee you there's some watering going on over here too on some of these platforms. I don't know, but I think it's some watering going on too. So I think
What what
that
what do you think if she can't help me carry that bucket of water, she ain't her? Where do you think I got that from?
I don't know where you get that from.
What I just said. Some plant, some water. God get the
Uh,
increase.
if she can't help
So
me
so if
carry
she
that
can't
bucket of
help me
water,
carry the bucket of water, she ain't her.
she got to help you water too.
Because I understood a while back that what I am doing is watering. A person who have not yet received seed can't hear what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm. Bruh. Whew, that went
I'm, it took me a minute
my
because
head.
listen, I was that guy you were talking about.
Mm-hmm.
I was that guy that used to get frustrated about a person rejecting what it was. I was like, how can you like
Grade A information, brother. Just came
yeah,
straight from the source.
like you really want to stay stuck there? Like you
Yeah.
really want to keep okay, okay, fine. And I had to get to the point like, okay, fine. I had to literally start doing that because it's not their fault.
Mm-hmm.
They are still this is going to sound just hear the words, don't put judgment on the word. I say it that way. Some people are still working on becoming good soil. So they never got the planting. Once you get the seeds planted, then the seeds must be watered. So if you're in the position of still trying to become good soil, or you have not yet received seed, then water does you no good. Have you ever poured water on sand and try to plant something in it?
Gonna grow.
It won't grow. It took me a minute to get that. And this is not, and that's why I say don't judge the words, because when the person hear it, they're thinking like, oh, you're calling some people saying. No, I'm not calling anybody anything. I'm just saying that understanding where people are in their life matters. But then by that same token, it's not my responsibility to understand where they are. It's only my responsibility to keep my bucket full of water. So the buckets that I'm carrying, I am pouring. The reason why I say if she can't help me carry the buckets, then she ain't her. Because when my buckets are empty, I got to turn around and grab more buckets.
Mm. Ladies and gentlemen, Coach ain't going to say that some of y'all saying, but I am. But maybe not none of y'all watching this. But and I'm only saying that because of this. I think there are some times in my life where I was straight saying I didn't have I wasn't good ground. I wasn't a place where I wasn't a vessel or I wasn't good enough ground to where seeds could be planted into me. And I think that that is okay. I'm okay with that. I think that there were some times in my life where that was the case. I will say that right now I am always constantly working, tilling, fertilizing, making sure that I am good ground
Yeah.
because I want those seeds. When coach drop a nugget or Gaddy or Roland or somebody drop a nugget on Friday night or something, I want my ground to be able to absorb that seed. You know what I mean? So that it can be watered and elevated at some point. So I will say, only speaking from personal experience and where I was in my life at some points, that I have been that person who is still trying to develop um a good enough ground to where seeds could be planted into me. So, I like that analogy, man. I like when you said working on becoming good ground. Like, I've never heard that. We always talk about good ground, good ground, good ground, throwing on good ground, but sometimes everybody not good ground. And sometimes we ain't good enough ground. And sometimes we're wondering and we're frustrated why we're not at a certain level. It's not because you haven't heard the information before. It's
Right.
just sometimes you wasn't at a place to receive the information, which in terms mean my ground wasn't good enough at the time when I first heard the information. I may have been working on myself, working on my ground, and now 10 years later, 5 years later, I can see it. Man, darn it, this is a freaking good podcast.
That's how you can tell right there. Like, did you see the excitement on your face? Like, I want you when I want you to look at this again, and I want you
Uh-huh.
to see the excitement that you just had. That's the
Mm.
perfect. That's how you know, right? And I didn't do it. I didn't say what I was saying, looking for the response that you just gave. But when
Mm-hmm.
I get responses like that, I know it did not come from me. I say it that way. Like I'm just the vessel in which it flow. But what you just received was personal for you. What
Mm-hmm.
somebody else just received was personal for them. Like it's a big difference between a pecan tree and an apricot tree. Big difference. They
Mm-hmm.
grow differently. They have their gestation period is a different time frame, right? You look at them. We like to talk about mustard seed faith. People don't
Mm-hmm.
realize that a mustard seed, like a mustard tree, grows fast. Most people don't realize that, and it gets ridiculously big. Like how in the world did that little seed grow up to be a tree so big in this short amount of time? Because that is what's specific to that seed. And so, depending upon the seed that's planted, when the water comes, the water now gets the seed to crack. And when the seed crack, it has to go through gravitropy first, right? Which means it grows down first, then it grows up. So a lot of times we feel depression, frustration here, but the seed is actually getting its roots positioned. Then it starts to come through. By the time it grows through the topsoil, right? This how y'all know I'm country. This by the time it goes through the topsoil, it has the root system in preparation for what the environment is going to hit it with. As the tree starts to grow, it has to deal with the weather in the environment. So when the storms come, and the tree starts swaying, it needs to have the root ball that is wide enough and robust enough to be able to stabilize it in the storm. A lot of times, what you'll find is that people are trying to do a thing, but they don't have the root ball for the thing that they're trying to do. So that's where the notion of good ground come from. Because if I plant a palm tree in Texas, if I did not dig up that ground and create the environment for it, that palm tree gonna die. And I'm talking about tropical palms. I'm not necessarily talking about those, very resilient palms.
About them authentic poems that's not
Mhm.
necessarily native to Texas.
Right.
This made me think even more about how our soil needs to be, I don't know if the word is diverse or able to, I don't want everything planted on my soil either. I want my soil to be resistant to certain things as well, which means that I need to making sure that I'm focused and making sure that I'm putting the right things in my soil. Man, this is very impactful. My brain, my gears have just been rolling right now, man. I don't even know what else to say on this part.
You good.
I'm kind
Uh,
of just sitting in it right now.
that's
I
fine.
know we got a podcast and I'm supposed to be talking, but I'm selfishly just kind of sitting into all of this. I am bittersweet looking forward to the end of the show only because I want to sit and listen
Mm,
and hear what else going to come of it.
yeah,
Um, and I know we've talked about that before that, a lot of times we go and we pray and we talk and we have conversations, but sometimes those conversations are one way. And
yeah,
then we roll and give, hey, thanks for being up, thank you for activity in my live. Let me have a good day, and boom, we off. You know what
yeah.
I mean? We never sit there and listen to the other side of that conversation because sometimes we get immediate response. Sometimes it's impactful, sometimes it's immediate.
Cool.
and sometimes it's not. But if we never sit in it, so man, I'm ready to keep going, but I'm also ready at the end to after the show for about 10 minutes, man. I'm just gonna sit
Yeah.
and not gonna do anything. So I'm looking forward to what else we got to share before we selfishly have to end this podcast. So um
Well,
but man, I'm loving this one.
I think this is a good place to share, because you mentioned something just now. You said, "I don't want everything planted in my soil." Um, yes, and right. So yes, I'm
Mhm.
agreeing with you. I don't want everything planted in my soil. So there's some things that I need to recognize that are inevitable, and
Weeds.
because weeds, exactly. You see exactly where I'm going.
Uh-huh.
Because of the very nature of who I'm supposed to be, I have a responsibility, and I got to keep
Mhm.
pulling the weeds. And I've been saying this phrase for quite some time. As a gardener, I have to keep pulling the weeds to ensure the health of my plants, of my garden, is not tampered with.
Mm.
But here's the interesting part: the most beautiful garden that you will ever see is a diversified garden.
Mhm.
So you'll see this type of plant over here, and you see these types of plants over here, and you see trees over here, you see shrubs over here, and you got whatever something over here is purple, and these over here are pink, and these back in this corner they're red. So you got all different types of things going on in your garden. And I think that is indicative of the work that the gardener is actually doing. Because if the gardener is not doing the work that is needed to be done, then well, you won't get that beautiful array of colors and diversity of heights and all of those different things. And then when people come to you and say, well, how can I do that? How can I, do what you're doing? Because I want my garden to be that beautiful. I want my garden to be that. Well, you don't necessarily have anything to share with them, because at the end of the day, you only, and I'm not saying that this is what you said, right? But I'm just giving the and part, because you're right. I don't want everything in my garden. I don't want the weeds, but I do want the array. I do want the colors. I need the ecosystem at full work within the garden. And I think sometimes some people don't diversify the garden to get the ecosystem working before they start trying to teach other people how to create a garden. And it's very
Mm.
unfortunate, because the impact of that person's teaching would be detrimental to the actual person that's receiving what that person is teaching. And so I think a lot of times what ends up happening is that we don't necessarily do the work internally to ensure that what we're working on first is working on me before it works through me, because that's how work works. Work must work on me first before it works through me. And a lot of times I want to make it work through me before the work is finished working on me. And if I'm being completely honest, the work is never finished working on me, because even when it starts working through me, it's going to, and the work that it's doing, like it's working through me now, but the work that is still working on me allows me to work at a higher level as time progresses. So I want to kind of like adjust this just a little bit, and I want to look at it from a global advocacy perspective. Do you believe that global advocacy efforts account for dodging accountability for the harm we cause offline? And you can talk about it online as well, because I think online is where global activity takes place more.
So when you talk about global advocacy, you talking about helping people outside of like and
My house.
supporting people outside. Oh, outside of the
Yeah,
house.
outside of my house.
Ooh,
Let's
the
just like
house. My
anybody who is
internal home.
right, anybody who is
Woo.
tuning into this show right now,
Mhm.
there's two things that are at display. Number one, they have a perspective of the people that they're seeing when they're looking at us on the screen. But
Mhm.
then number two, they don't have the knowledge to support that we are exactly who we are purporting ourselves to be. So, do we believe that global advocacy efforts, and I'm not talking about what anybody else is doing, I'm talking about what we do, right? Do they account for dodging accountability for the harm we cause?
Mm. Does Global advocacy efforts account for dodging accountability for the harm that we cause offline. Dodging accountability. I
Let me let
don't
me
think that. Huh?
let me, if you don't mind.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, because I can see that this can feel like a loaded question, and in some aspects it really is, right? This scenario I just gave,
Mm-hmm.
and I use myself as a talking point. It is irresponsible. That's the word I'm gonna use because we're talking accountability. It is irresponsible for me to call myself the mindset coach, to purport myself as the mindset coach. And I don't allow the consistency coach to say, hey, can I talk with you for a second? Because at the end of the day, you're the mindset coach now. Why is your mindset down here as it pertains to this particular talking point? You're the mindset coach.
Mm-hmm.
So, is there a level of accountability that I have, right, as it pertains to what I purport myself as? Because when you bring it to my attention, I should say, you know what? That actually makes sense. Thank you for sharing that. That's accountability right there, right?
Mm-hmm.
Me being responsible for the name mandates that I listen to what you say. So when we're offline and I'm doing what I'm doing in here, I'm doing what I'm doing, on the phone with the people I know, love, and care about. I should still be the mindset coach, should I not?
Yep.
That shouldn't change. It shouldn't be a cape that I put on, you know, when I sit down in this chair. Dun, 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 dun. No, it shouldn't be that way. It should be a consistency. No pun intended, by the way. It should be a
Mm-hmm.
consistency of who I purport myself to be. And that in turn requires that accountability um, is written into the efforts that we're portraying. Your thoughts?
I like that you said that, and I agree with that 100%. I Coach's corner starts with the word coach. When you look at a coach, when most people think about coach, they think about, you know, I ain't gonna say Nick Saban, but you know what I mean. They think about some sort of athletic coach, and when they think about coaches, they usually look at that person in some sort of leadership role. We call this show Coach's Corner. People probably look at this as two leaders, two coaches. Because we have deemed ourselves, spent the money to get the label, whatever you want to call it, we are considered coaches. We have the piece of paper to prove it. We have um whatever. That carries weight. When people see this podcast, on here, on Hearts of Men on Friday night, or whatever they see us on Sundays, on Bible study, whatever one of us or any of us may be, we do have a certain responsibility to ourselves to maintain that who we are. When we were in the military, they told us 24 hours a day, whether you're on duty or off of duty, you are still Sergeant First Class Dwyer. I don't care if you downtown. Don't have them earrings in your ear and you better be clean shaven. We wasn't able to separate who we were in the uniform, in a sense, from who we were outside. Now we were, but we also still had to maintain a certain level, a certain appearance, and a certain persona or whatever about you were, because you still was representing the military, even though you may have been in civilian clothes. And I think it's the same thing with this. Whether we're on Coach's Corner, where we're on Hearts of Men, our personal lives as fathers, you know what I mean? The father is supposed to act a certain type of way. A
Mhm.
coach is supposed to have a certain type of behavior and demeanor. So when we're up here on Tuesday nights and on Friday nights and on Sunday mornings and any other night that we're on the air, and we are telling people or sharing and having conversations or representing ourselves as a coach. And then we got this person in the DMs. We're having conversations about this over here. We're at the water cooler, you know what I mean, talking about blah, 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 and the nasty jokes. And, you know what I mean, we got a homeboy that we sending, nasty pictures back and forth to, you know what I mean? And then we up here talking about I'm a coach. It's like, I don't want to live that lifestyle. And I will
Right.
say that honestly, that and then my personal job as a school counselor and just who I am as a person, I don't want to be living a double life. I don't want to be living two types of things. I remember back in the day when I was not the person that I was today, and I was out there hunting, and I already had a piece of meat. I had enough meat in the house in the freezer to last me forever, and I still was out there hunting. You know what I'm saying? I didn't have a problem with it as much. Yeah, after a little bit, I feel a certain type of way, but I mean, for the most part, there was no accountability. There wasn't, hey, you're a father, you're a non-commissioned officer in the military, you're whatever, But I do think that now I have come full circle. There have been some changes and some growth that has happened in my life to whereas now that is there. And good, bad, or indifferent. I think mostly good. I do have that in the back of my head at all times. Coach's Corner, Power Perspective Podcast, Hearts of Men, a school counselor. I do have those things in my back of my mind, child of God, to help on keep me in line with where I'm supposed to be. So yeah, man, everything that you said, man, times 10, 100%.
I love it. I
Gotta
love
be
it.
who we are, man. You can't, bro. It's people see it, man, and
Yeah.
it's nothing worse, man. I hate it. I hate it when I see true people's colors come out sometime. I hate when I used to see some of those mega preachers go down. You know what I'm saying? I'm not saying that church is all of that, and I understand we can have a whole nother thing about that. When I used to see, what was the guy? He's called him Eddie Longstroke or something. It was Bishop Eddie Long, right? So like when he went through that, I I
My bad.
hated
I'm sorry, man.
because
Oh man.
whatever they were calling him afterwards. But my thing is, man, I was saddened because I'm like, man, this is a guy who's up there and he's representing, he has a huge church and stuff like this. And I was like, man, this guy don't have a certain amount of accountability about himself. Like, man, when you're in that position, when you're in that role, like I said, good, bad, or indifferent, you held to a higher standard. And I look at all of those sheep that may have been affected by his
Mhm.
leadership. You know what I'm saying? In those spaces. So that's kind of what I meant by that. And the reason why I kind of brought that little piece up, man.
No, you're good. I so I'm obviously I'm in sync with all that you're saying. For me, I don't feel any particular type of way when stuff like that happens, and I want to be
Mhm.
clear when I say what I'm saying.
Mhm.
First and foremost, I don't know them. They don't know me. That's for
That part
starters.
too. Yep.
Secondly, the only reason I am the only reason I was feeling the way that I was feeling when I did feel the way I felt about
Mhm.
my expectations of who they were supposed to be and their level of accountability
My
is
expectations.
right, is simply because I lost sight of reality. I started viewing them higher than what they should have been. Maybe they were carrying themselves higher than what they should have been. All of that though is none of
Mm.
my responsibility. My responsibility is make sure that this inside out work is happening because again, it must work in me first before it works through me. So I make sure that this flow never ends. And as long as I keep myself in flow, then what I find is that what's happening on the outside, over here and this person down the street and around the corner and this person's on TV and all that other great stuff, that stuff doesn't affect me because I'm not distracted by it. And that was the place I had to get to. I'm not gonna sit here and tell people that I was born that way. I certainly was not. I was, let me tell you something. Hey, did you hear about hey man, you hear about Garfield? What happened with Garfield? Oh man, let me tell you, bro. I was walking down the hall, right? And he was in the first starting off that parade rest. I think everybody had that in them to a certain degree,
Yep.
but you mature out of that. And instead of me getting on the phone and say, "Hey man, you heard about Garfield?" I'd be like, "Hey Garfield, you good, bro? You want to talk?" I was walking down the hall and I see you in the first sergeant office. You know what I'm saying? Man, I'll come to your room, but hold on. So instead, I prefer to do that now.
Mhm.
Talk with Garfield instead of talk about Garfield. I think that's the thing that the work did in me. This was this was the thing that happened when the work was still working on me, right? When the work was still working on me, I was on the phone talking to other people about Garfield. When the work started working through me, I called Garfield and said, "Hey man, you all right? You want to talk about it?" I just walked past and seen what was going on. And I'm only using this as an example. This has never happened, by the way. I just want people to understand that. I think that's the difference between understanding the work. And what we have to recognize is that I have to, and I'm gonna say this, and I'm not gonna go down this road because I'm looking at the time and we got to get this last point out.
Mhm. Alright.
Um, we have to recognize that retirement is a route. It's again another one of those things because we should have never lived the life that we want to retire from. We should have created a life that which we don't desire to retire until we expire. I'll say that part again. We should have never lived a life in which we want to retire from. We should have created a life to where there was no need to retire until we expire. So once I expire, that's when retirement happens because I finished my work. But this work that I am choosing to do this day, this work is never ending work. There's always somebody who need uplifting. There's always
Mhm.
somebody who wants to sit down and talk. There's always somebody who is going through. And the reason why I have compassion for the person that's going through, because I went through.
Mhm.
So that kind of leads us to our last and
But
final talking point. I'm sorry, go ahead.
they went through a whole bunch of stuff,
Oh yeah,
man.
yeah. And that kind of leads us to our last and final talking point, which I think is the key, and it is the top secret that we were talking about: the impact inertia equation. Now, for those of you who forgot, so inertia is a fundamental principle, and you discover it via Newton's law, and it actually is the first law of motion. And it says that an object at rest will stay at rest, and an object in motion will stay in motion unless an external force acts upon it to change its velocity. Now,
Mm.
I think that piece right there, if we pay close attention to what was just said, I think that piece is key because a lot of us need outside forces to change our velocity. So now we got to define what is an outside force. Is an outside force just random information that I go extract off of the internet from a person who has no relationship with me and has no level of accountability as it pertains to me? Or is it somebody like the consistency coach or the mindset coach that we actually get on the phone with once a week to track progress? And we're going to be on that phone once a week. So now you have a reason to do the thing that you need to do because at the end of the day, I don't want to get on the phone with coach and coach be like, hey, so did you do this last week? We'll see what had happened was nope. Talk to you next week. And I mean, I'm exaggerating a little bit, but that's exactly how it
Yeah.
happened. Right?
Mhm.
So I think that kind of helps us to understand because when we look at the impact inertia equation, it helps us to recognize that we are to leave a mark that outlives ourselves. And the metaphorical formula for understanding why good intentions often fail to create meaningful, sustained change, it is rooted in systems thinking and behavioral psychology. And it states that sustained impact equals focus energy plus silent consistency over ego. Now, when I say over ego, I'm talking about an equation like division, right? So it's like ego. Well, let me take that back. I'm sorry, not division, but ego. It's almost like looking at them on planes, and so ego has to stay below focus, energy, and silent consistency. That's what I mean when I say that. And if we look at it from that perspective, that means that even in stages of focus, energy, and silent consistency, and keep in mind, this isn't a balance. This isn't 50-50. This isn't focus energy here at 50% and silent consistency at 50%. No, Sometimes this is 90% and this is 10%. Sometimes this is 90% and this is 10%. Sometimes it's 60/40, whatever that looks like, right? There is no such thing as balance. In order to get to sustained impact, our ego must stay below focus energy and silent consistency, which means that I never start glorifying myself based upon the concepts of the energies that I'm focusing on or the level of consistencies that I have in the route to sustain impact. And so when we look at focus energy is precision in addressing specific needs, right? Silent consistency is daily unglamorized actions. And I'm not trying to insult anybody's intelligence, but I want to make sure that we have a clear understanding of this. And then ego is the self serving need for credit, visibility, or control that dilutes impact. And so it helps us to, it really helps us to consider our ways, right? It helps us to, yeah, I got intent, but the focus is impact. And if the focus is impact, then we have to recognize that, sure, my intent can be good only if my intent is to get to gather the impact that is for you. I'll say it again. My intent can be good only if it's to get to if it desires to gather the impact that is for you. And if it's for you, it has to be done in ways that you can receive it and use it. So now, I know I left a lot of things off, but I just kind of want to jump down to the question real quick because time is upon us. If legacy building requires silent consistency, years of invisible work, why do 83% of people abandon project once applause fail? And what does this reveal about their true motivation?
And that word at the end, that motivation word. That's why I have a bittersweet relationship, a love hate relationship with this word. I think, I've mentioned before, love. I mean, motivation is like the kindling on the fire. Like it's good to get started, but
Yeah.
after a while, you got to throw on some discipline. You got to throw on some mindset. You got to throw on a whole bunch of different things on there in order for it to work. So I don't, I think, initially, and I think that part of the reason is because a lot of times when people start off on these journeys, whether it's to lose weight on January the 1st, or whether it is to, get into a certain dress for a wedding or to, get a certain look, to fit in a suit or whatever it may be. I think a lot of times those things start off with motivation, not necessarily mindset, not necessarily a plan. So I think a lot of times people abandon these things is because their focus is and their goal or whatever may not have been big enough or bigger than their mindset. And what I mean by that is this: my mindset is, I'm 50 years old. I've never worked out in my life. I've never been on a diet. I've never eaten a vegetable in my life. And now I'm saying I'm going to go out there and in 3 months, I'm going to run 5 miles and I'm going to wake up every morning, 7 days a week at 4 o'clock. And I'm only going to eat, boiled chicken, rice, and broccoli. And that's it. Well, you got the motivation up there. You know what I mean? But you've never done it. You don't have any history of that or any of that. And the reason why so many people fail or fall off the wagon or abandon projects, what I mean, once everybody stopped cheering for you. Oh yeah, man, you done lost 15 pounds. It looked good. But now reality starts setting in. He's looking around and now you're on the island by yourself. Sometimes you
Mm,
don't have that support. You don't have that mindset because you're 50 and you've never done any of these things before. So you haven't consistently built up those things time and time and time again. So now it falls off. And then what it reveals about your true motivation is that your focus may have just been the motivation,
yeah.
not or may have just been the intent and not the impact. If I want to bring it all the way around, you know what I'm saying? So your focus may have just been the intent. I want to lose weight. I want to get jacked for whoever. I want to get the degree, and that's it. And that's the motivation piece. So that's the
Mm,
intent. But it got to have some impact. What is your impact? What is the impact in your life going to be when you
Right.
lose that 50 pounds and you're in really great shape and you can breathe better? You can walk up and down the steps and you don't
Yeah.
have to use your CPAP no more. Like, what's the impact on that? So I think a lot of this is people focus on the motivation. And I think what it reveals about someone's true motivation is that sometimes your motivation is just that. Sometimes you're only focused on the motivation and you're not focused on all of the other things in order to actually stay consistent and actually to reach your goal or to get that legacy or whatever it is that you are trying to do.
Yeah. And listen, I'm gonna be honest with you, bro. The only thing I'm gonna add to what you said, because I think you're spot on, is that
Mhm.
when I'm focused on the motivation, I'm only focused on building that legacy for me. I
Mm,
want the credit of being able to say I have created a legacy plan for my family. But if I'm still trying to glorify myself in doing it, I'm missing the notion of this more important thing. The number one secret is impact inertia equation, which helps me to understand again. Where's the equation at? Did I have the equation up? Nope, there it is. I'm sorry. The equation itself is all about making sure that where's it at? Where's it at? Where's it at? It kind of went by too fast already. But again, it's all about the energy, right? It's all about there's a sustained impact equals focused energy plus solid consistency over ego. And again, if it's motivation, it's all ego, buddy. That's the answer. So
mm,
appreciate it, man. Love it. Listen,
bro,
you giving the people some last words as we get up out of here?
man, here's what I wrote down. Being intentional. This I don't know how it's gonna come down. I just wrote it down. It says intentional about doing what I am supposed to. It will be impactful whether or not you know it or not. Focus on your job. So I guess all of that, if I'm thinking about it, is um focus on doing whatever it is you're supposed to do. If the hire said that you're supposed to say this or do that, then just focus on that. Don't worry about the other pieces of the puzzle. Don't worry about the impact that you're going to have on something. If your job is to plant, then just go out there and plant the seeds. If your job is to give back the information, just go give the information. Don't worry about the impact. Don't worry about the pat on the back. Don't worry about any of that coming back. Because at the end of the day, when you go out there and you do what you're supposed to be and you do what you're supposed to do, you're going to be rewarded anyway. So it don't even matter. So just go out there and do what you're supposed to do. The impact, if you're doing what you're supposed to do and it's from the right source, then it's going to be impactful anyway, whether you see it or not.
I like that. I like that. Slightly different perspective, and that's fine, right?
Yeah.
I think again the impact is important, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I can believe for a particular impact. I can believe. I'm gonna say it again for everybody out there. I can
Mm-hmm.
believe for a particular impact, like this, legacy building thing. I can believe for a particular impact for my children's children and their children, and so forth and so on,
Mm-hmm.
and plant the seed for that impact while believing. As long as I don't have the need to see the harvest, then I think
I
everything will
like
be
that.
fine.
I like that.
Plant the seed without the need to see the harvest.
I like that.
That is fantasy. That is legacy building 101. So listen, um, great conversation, man. I greatly appreciate all the value that you added. Um, I pray this conversation helps. I pray this conversation helps anybody who listen. I am 100%. We are 100% open to having to having a continuation of this conversation to dig a little deeper in
Mm-hmm.
different key points. If you guys would like for us to do that, if you just want us to dig deeper in some of these key points specifically with you or with your team or with your family or whatever that looks like, I would love to continue to share this perspective because I think this is where our freedom exists out of a system that kind of keeps you bind to it. So, on behalf of my friend, uh, the Uncle Junior, the consistency coach, my name is Dwayne Dwyer, and I go by the mindset coach. And listen, Let the best version of yourself be a blessing to everybody else. And we will see you guys next week.